Imagine a pain so hidden, so disguised, that you didn't even notice when it first started. At first, it felt like love, warm, intense, real. But what was actually growing inside you was silence, humiliation, and a strange, hollow emptiness. You tried to please, to adapt, to stay quiet, yet nothing was ever enough. This kind of relationship, which seems so passionate on the surface, is actually a cold, cruel psychological trap. As Otto Kernberg explains, a narcissist doesn't truly connect with you. Instead, they interact with the reflection that feeds their ego. And the moment you stop playing that role, their true nature emerges. They begin to destroy you. But there is a silent, devastating kind of revenge that doesn't need confrontation or noise, only awareness. This revenge isn't about yelling, scandals, or the thousand responses you rehearse in your mind. It happens when you break free from the cycle of seeking validation. When you stop asking for explanations from someone who will never give them. When you realize that cutting ties with someone who only drains you isn't cruelty, it's self-defense. Kernberg reveals that narcissists are driven by an obsessive need to control and dominate emotionally. But inside, they collapse the moment their victim escapes the cycle. The real revenge? Becoming unreachable. That's what destroys them from the inside out, because they simply don't know how to handle absence without control. For so long, you believed you needed the right words, proof of your worth, one last chance. But the narcissist will never see you as a real person, only as a function. A function whose sole purpose is to keep their ego inflated, even if it means sacrificing your soul. When you disappear without explanation, without pleading, without tears, they lose it. Not because they love you, but because they've lost their grip. According to Kernberg, this hits the fragile structure of their false self, that grand image they built but desperately depend on others to maintain. You don't need a dramatic revenge. What destroys a narcissist is your indifference, your healing, the silence they can't stand. It's the fact that you no longer feel the need to prove or expect anything because you finally understand they will never change. Kernberg shows that the narcissistic personality structure is fixed, rigid, and often impermeable to empathy. When you don't react, don't explain, don't insist, you trigger the collapse they fear most, invisibility. And that is a pain that cuts deeper than anything else. If you've ever felt like your worth was erased by someone who pretended to love you but only manipulated you, stay with me. Today, you'll discover, based on Otto Kernberg's deep psychological insights, why a narcissist falls apart when you disappear and how your absence becomes the most powerful, cruel, and final weapon you can use. And the best part? You don't have to stoop to revenge or drama. Just live in a way they'll never be able to tolerate. Your emotional freedom. The narcissist, Kernberg explains, was not born cruel. They built themselves from deep, unhealed wounds. Early on, they learned that being vulnerable was dangerous, so they armored themselves with arrogance, coldness, and superiority. But behind that grand facade lies a terrifying emptiness, a chronic fear of being discarded, rejected, or simply ignored. And it's this fear that drives their need to dominate, control, and slowly drain their victims. Kernberg calls this pathological narcissistic personality organization. This structure doesn't seek love. It craves submission. A narcissist doesn't want a relationship. They want an audience. To get it, they manipulate, flatter excessively at first, then withdraw affection as punishment. They lure you with crumbs of kindness and punish you with silences that scream. This emotional instability is meticulously planned to make you dependent, confused, and begging for scraps. Most victims don't even realize what's happening. They believe love must be earned, that the problem lies within themselves. At this moment, the narcissist has you completely under their control. Kernberg describes this as the peak of emotional domination, where the narcissist slowly kills the other's identity to keep total control. You no longer know who you are, what you want, or what you feel. Everything revolves around pleasing them and avoiding rejection. But there is a breaking point, and that's where silent revenge is born. When you look in the mirror and don't recognize yourself, something inside you starts to burn. Pain turns into anger, and anger into clarity. You realize you don't need answers, forgiveness, or love from someone who only knows how to use you to at that moment. Something inside wakes up, something the narcissist can never give you: your freedom. This freedom isn't loud or explosive. It's cold and precise. It shows itself in silence, in refusing to react, in breaking the cycle. Kernberg says when a victim escapes emotional dependence, the narcissist collapses. They lose their source of mirroring, the very person who kept their false self alive. And in that emptiness, they fall apart. What many don't understand is that narcissists aren't strong. They're fragile, so fragile that they need you to maintain a false image of grandeur. When Kernberg talks about the narcissist's false self, he means this illusory structure built to appear invincible, but hiding a wounded child desperately seeking validation, yet incapable of real love. When you leave the relationship and cut contact, not just physically, but emotionally, you stop the flow that fed the narcissist. This absence is not just empty space. It's a symbolic denial of their existence. Because without someone to dominate, the narcissist feels erased. For them, being invisible is worse than being hated. Hate still means a connection, but silence means being nothing. Kernberg emphasizes this is one of the harshest psychic punishments for those with intense narcissistic traits. They live in constant need of admiration, and when that admiration is cut off, even if it was never genuine, their ego crumbles. It's at this moment they scramble to regain control with messages, attempts to reconnect, provocations, or even threats. But they don't do this out of love. They do it out of panic. That it's crucial, Kernberg says, for victims to recognize this pattern and not be fooled by false signs of remorse. There is no real regret where there is no true empathy, only desperation to regain control. The narcissist wants power back, not you. They want submission, not your soul. And when they realize you're no longer playing their game, they feel the only pain that truly affects them: insignificance. This is the revenge that destroys the narcissist, not because you attacked them, but because you stopped reflecting them, stopped validating them, stopped existing on their terms. For someone with severe narcissistic personality organization, this feels like an implosion. They have nowhere to stand, and all that's left is a hollow emptiness eating them from inside. You may have tried everything: talking, crying, explaining, writing long messages, shouting, but nothing seemed to touch them. That's because, according to Kernberg, narcissists don't respond to emotions, they respond to control. The more you show feelings, the more superior they feel. The more you lose control, the more in command they believe they are. But there is one poison they cannot swallow: your peace, your emotional absence, your ability to keep living as if they don't exist. For a narcissist, being ignored is like being annihilated because their world revolves around themselves. If you're not watching, they dissolve. What remains is the truth they fear the most: that they don't matter. Kernberg explains this deep pain triggered by indifference results from a fragile identity. The narcissist never built a true self, only masks. When no one believes those masks anymore, they collapse because they don't know who they really are. And that's exactly what your silence does. It strips away their masks one by one until only loneliness is left. That's why the revenge that destroys a narcissist isn't shouting, exposing, or confrontation. It's in rebuilding yourself, moving forward without looking back, refusing to respond to provocations, and rejecting their game. This stance says everything. You no longer belong to their world. And that's unbearable for someone who only survives by dominating others. You don't need to hate them. You just need to forget they exist. According to Otto Kernberg, This forgetting is the psychological equivalent of social exile, the worst nightmare for a narcissist. No audience, no stage, no echo. Without an echo, their grand fantasy crumbles. For you, this is rebirth. For them, it's a sentence. Because a narcissist only feels safe when their victim is broken. When you start loving yourself, valuing yourself, and saying no without guilt, you become someone they don't recognize. Kernberg says narcissistic people cannot handle the emotional autonomy of others. It destabilizes them. They need your pain to feel important, your doubt to feel superior, your fear to feel strong. When all of that disappears, they don't know how to stand anymore. They may try one last trick, playing the victim, but now you see through their pattern. Your clarity is your revenge, not the revenge of pain, but the revenge of awareness, silent strength, and regained dignity. Kernberg always stresses firm boundaries without violence, because what truly hurts a narcissist isn't yelling. It's a clear boundary, a firm no, the end of their game. You'll notice they start to wilt, look for new victims, and disappear from your life because you no longer offer what they crave. Submission. This moment is liberating, not because they lost, but because you won. You won yourself. You won your peace. You earned the right not to live for someone who never truly saw you. For the narcissist, this is like dying while still alive, because as you bloom, they fade into the one place they lived, your mind. When Otto Kernberg analyzes pathological narcissism, he talks about a psychic prison disguised as power. But it's not power, it's desperation, extreme neediness. Your freedom is something they'll never understand because they cannot imagine a life where the other stands tall and unbent. That's why your freedom destroys them. It silently says they no longer have control, that you are no longer accessible, that you have become your own master. And that hurts more than any attack. Because in the narcissist's twisted logic, the world revolves around them. When you turn in a different direction, they lose themselves. The greatest revenge is living well, quietly, fully, without boasting, provoking, or explaining. Simply existing in your truth. That's something a narcissist can never imitate because they don't live, they perform. And without a stage, the actor disappears. Otto Kernberg makes it clear. The victim's healing is the narcissist's collapse. Because they can't relate to someone with self-esteem, clarity, and boundaries. And when they realize you've become that person, they run, not from fear of you, but from fear of what you represent. The truth. And that truth is the only thing that can destroy a narcissist forever. Not because you sought revenge, but because you chose to live. Getting here wasn't just about understanding the narcissist. It was about understanding yourself. Every layer of manipulation unveiled. Every silence that once hurt you now turns into wisdom. And what once trapped you no longer holds power over you. The greatest victory isn't watching them suffer your absence. It's recognizing yourself whole, standing tall and free. Because when you understand the narcissist's mind like Kernberg teaches, you step out of the victim role and become the author of your own story. The narcissist doesn't fear confrontation. They fear your awareness. They fear the moment you stop needing them, stop explaining, stop begging. They fear the day you wake up and realize you don't need revenge because they are already trapped in the one thing they can never escape, themselves and you. You can go, fly, live, free from the weight of a game designed to weaken you. Kernberg reminds us true transformation happens when you break the patterns that kept you captive, that it's not about changing the narcissist. It's about healing yourself. Because the narcissist will never accept your autonomy, but that doesn't matter. What matters is you accepted your light, your worth, your peace. And no one can ever take that away from you again. If this video touched your soul, if it opened wounds now beginning to heal, leave a comment. Tell me the moment you felt you needed to break free. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to take their first step. Like this video, share it with anyone who needs this truth, and subscribe to the channel because here you are not alone. Every word here is a step toward healing. You were never meant to be a mirror for anyone. You were born to reflect your own light. And when that happens, the narcissist can't survive because your healing is the revenge they will never endure. And you will keep going, growing, shining, because now you know you deserve so much more than crumbs. You deserve to be whole, and that is what frees you forever. If this message spoke to your heart, if it lit a spark of awareness or healing within you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this truth today. Remember, healing is a journey we don't have to walk alone. Here, you're part of a community that understands, supports, and empowers. Subscribe now and join us for more insights that will help you reclaim your power, set strong boundaries, and live your fullest, most authentic life. Your freedom is the greatest revenge, and your story can inspire someone else to break free. Let's grow stronger together.